What does it take to break the generational cycle of poverty? Our guest today is Dr. Abraham George. He is a renowned philanthropist, social entrepreneur, and the visionary founder of the Shanti Bhavan School in India that is breaking cycles of poverty and empowering the next generation of leaders. And his school has actually started out with only 48 children over the last 27 years, changed the lives of 15,000 people. 98%, I really love this statistic, 98% of their students are college graduates, and many of them making into Ivy League schools, Stanford, Dartmouth, Princeton, and there's also a documentary about their school that were highlighted in 2017 called Daughters of Destiny, and it centers around their initiatives to educate and empower girls. So we're really excited to have Abraham here. And today we're going to talk about the root causes of generational poverty and their bottom up approach to transformation. So, Abraham, welcome. We're glad to have you here today.
Very nice of you. Thank you, Nicole. I just want to add The Daughters of Destiny is on Netflix, just so that.
Netflix. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I meant to mention that. Yes. And we'll make sure there's a link in the show notes to that so people
Okay.
can make sure that they get that. Also, a shout out to Oscar Hamilton and their team for the wonderful introduction. I always like to acknowledge those that support this show, and we have amazing booking agents who send us guests all the time. And so, Marike at Oscar Hamilton introduced us. So, thank you for this introduction. So, let's talk about Abraham. What inspired you to literally dedicate your life to? I know you had a career before, and then just you decided to leave that and dedicate your life to serving this community in India and these kids within this school. So, talk a little bit about what led to that.
Okay. My business career was in the United States for 25 years. But before that, I had a small career. I was a graduate of the Indian Military Academy, and I went on to serve in the Indian Artillery. If I may just carry that story because it's relevant to what motivated me to start embark on what I am doing today. Um, I was posted as an officer in the Himalayas, very close to the Chinese border. This was soon after the Chinese invasion of India in the 1960s. And I was sent up to an altitude of 14,000 feet, the highest battleground at that time, anywhere in the world, that where artillery guns were taken up there, and I was sent with some soldiers, and we were blasting the rocks, and I used to joke that we are moving the Himalayas. But anyway, and at the end of 10 months or so, I had a major accident. I was blown up by a dynamite, blast, and I was sent home. And then I was sent to the Pakistan border. But coming back to the Chinese story, while I was there, it's very cold, below, freezing temperatures, um, shortage of oxygen and everything else, and I was the only officer there. I used to climb another small mountain out there, and I used to sit there and wait because the blasting is going on down there. And I used to think, what am I doing? I'm trained well to kill others. This is a profession I want, or I want something else. When the accident took place, I came to the realization there must be some reason why I was saved. If I was a fraction of a second late, I would have been totally blown up, and I turned around and jumped. So I committed myself to doing something for social good. I didn't know exactly what I will be doing, but I decided that I need to leave the army and make some money. And I had the opportunity to come to the United States. I was barely 21 at that time. And then I did my graduate studies in New York University and all of that. And after a couple of years working for JP Morgan, I started my own company, which lasted for another 25 years. But as time passed, I realized that my original mission, which is to do social work or social service, wasn't was getting delayed, and I decided to sell my company and return to India after almost 20 plus years of absence to embark on what I am doing today. So I got started with a school called Shanti Bhavan, which is a residential school for children from the bottommost segment of the society. They are also the so-called untouchables of India. We have India as a caste system, and so they don't have the same opportunity as others. And I was driven by the social justice element of it, apart from poverty. And I felt that the way to solve the problem is to empower them rather than
Yeah.
waiting for somebody to do something good for them. So that's why I am doing what I'm doing. I embarked on many other projects, which I'll be happy to talk to you, but the main thrust was the school, residential school for children from very deprived, socially and economically deprived communities.
Yeah. Talk about that caste system. Not everybody's familiar with that and how that works. And I
Oh,
think it's also relevant for even like in the US, sometimes people say they don't have opportunity, but like literally there, if you're in a social like you don't have a chance unless somebody actually
sure,
offers it to you. Yeah.
sure.
It's different. It's just different,
Yes.
different perspective.
Uh, well, America has a class system, not as so much of a caste system,
Yeah.
uh, and it's based on color, mainly.
Yeah.
But in India, the color, somebody can be dark, somebody can be lighter skin. So it's not based on color. It's based on where and how you were born. And this goes back to 1500 years when the society was broken up based on who is going to do what. And the upper so-called rich people who owned land and so on decided that some people ought to be the ones to clean their, latrines and do all kinds of menial labor. And after a few hundred years, they were classified as untouchable. They were not allowed to enter the homes. They didn't have any property. Their children sometimes have to work as bonded laborers. Bonded labor means that you give your service for free and for which they give you some food. So this system still continues. But when India became independent from the British in 1947, Mahatma Gandhi wanted to give rights to people who belong to the so-called untouchable caste. They were called untouchables at that time, and the Constitution said that if you discriminate on the basis of caste, you'll be punished, punishable by law. But but they never removed never removed the caste system. So it exists even today. People refer to a certain group of people belonging to the lowest caste. In fact, the government asks you when when you apply for a job, asks you what your caste is.
Wow.
So, so this still exists, but sort of not spoken of much, but everyone knows who belongs to what caste.
Wow. So you're saying that when somebody goes for a job, they ask them what caste they're part of. How does that affect their ability to get a job?
It works both ways. For government jobs, they
Okay.
have set aside a quota, like 10 to 20%, depends on what it is,
Okay.
where they have to recruit from the lowest caste.
Okay.
College admission, same way, 10 to 20%. You have to be given admission whether you are qualified on merit or not. So in that
Okay.
sense, it helps. But even in America, people in the Silicon Valley discriminate people in their own company, in major companies, you're talking about Fortune 100 companies,
Yeah.
they discriminate because they know certain employees belong to the lower caste.
So how do they know that? I mean, you worked in so yeah for a while. Yeah, how do they know that?
Yeah, one of the ways they know is the name. The name sort of designates, sort of give you an idea. And
Now you're
then
talking about American citizens, not just in like hiring in India. You're talking about here, American
even
citizens.
here, they
Hmm.
have certain names that commonly used by people who belong to that. Secondly, their
Hmm.
background is, the education background is poor, so their accent is poor. Their knowledge about many things is less than those who went to very good schools. So then they talk, where do you come from, and this and that, and they find out.
Yeah. It's interesting. I remember being in, I never really thought about it like in this way, but I remember being in Canada and I chose not to go to university because I had a business and my parents had businesses and my dad was, they're very blue collar, at least my dad was, and his family
Right.
growing up and where he came from. My mother, a little bit more, certainly more affluent, but um, so I'm in my 20s and I'm working on my business and I'm going out there and I'm presenting. And a lot of people asked me at that time, where did you go to university?
Wow.
And it
Okay.
was kind of like a qualifier, right? Like not like,
Right,
oh, I'm
right.
curious, where did you go to university? It was more like a qualifier to say, like, what is your level of education? And it's very interesting. And then after a while, people stopped asking me that question. In fact, I remember working with lawyers at one time with some of the top lawyers in Canada, and we were moving to a bigger firm. And I said to him, I said, well, because they needed my resume just for formality because I was going with them. And I said, you realize that on my resume, it doesn't say that I have a university education, college, or anything like that. And he said, I don't care. We've already negotiated the deal. You're coming with us because of the project that I was working on. And he said, just tell him you went to the School of Life Experience. And I said, oh, I like that. And it's still on my LinkedIn today. I went to the School of Life Experience.
Right,
And
right.
what a great education that is. But how often does that limit us? And so talk about your school. Coming back to what you do, is you bring them out of that situation, even and kind of like overcoming that. Maybe they have the same, that last name that they had. I don't know how you deal with that, but yet talk about how you actually, because it's not just education, it's a mindset, it's psychological, it's all of those things that you got to work on to be able to have 98% of your students to be graduates, and many going on to those Ivy League
Right,
schools and getting
right.
into those Ivy League schools, which then allow them to get those positions at American companies and abroad, I'm sure.
Right, right. Um, you know, one of the greatest things about America is that um, people, a lot of people, want to help the underdog. That is not necessarily so in many other countries, including India. Now, back to your question. We take children, we search for children who are economically very deprived. That is, we used to take children whose family income is less than $2 per day. $2. Now, with inflation and everything, we have raised it up to $5 a day. But $5 is what a Starbucks coffee costs, right? So that's it for a family of four. And so that's our criteria. And what we find when we base it on the on income, we don't like to ask what your caste is. So we are based on income. If we find that over 90% of those people are from the so-called untouchable caste. By definition, they just sort of fall within that. So,
Yeah.
but we don't ask that question. Now, um, how do we uh, transform them? That's a different issue. They don't have role models. Hardly anyone from their families have gone to a high school or a college for that matter. So one of the challenges we have is not just to inspire and motivate the kid to do well. The parents don't have any expectations of their kid. The parents think they are no good. They will, be some menial labor or something in the low level. When we talk about our kids going to college and then you talk about Ivy League and so on, they don't even understand. They don't even understand what America is, for that matter.
Right.
They know it's a prosperous country and that's about it. So we have a lot of challenges to overcome, and that is first making the children aspire for something great, making the parents understand that their children have the same potential as anyone else. All that they need is the nurture that we need to give. There was this debate about nature versus nurture. And one of my great ambitions was to prove to the world or to prove to the society that, listen, if you take children from any segment of the society and you do the very best, bring them up well and educate them well and motivate them, they have a good chance. They will do just as well as children from upper segment of the society. So that is what we do to make this thing happen.
So that's, yeah, you bring up a really good point, because I think that is across the board in all countries. This isn't just India and the situation that you're dealing with, but the generational patterns and the, like you said, the low expectation. I think about, people that have had aspirations, that I've interviewed, even that have had aspirations to go to college, and their parents are like, why would you ever do that? One of my recent guests, Jane Boulwar, finished out her career at Microsoft, and as a VP in Microsoft. She'd been at Kimberly Clark, she'd been all over the world and working in, and doing these amazing things. And when she talks about, in her autobiography, she talks about the fact that when she was growing up, she grew up in the cornfields of Iowa, that when she wanted to go to college, like, her parents were like, especially her dad was like,
Yeah,
why would you
yeah,
ever want to do that?
yeah, yeah.
And so I'm glad you addressed that, because as parents, to believe in your kids, and we all, we like to think that everyone believes in their children and that they can be anything that they want to be. But that starts with, of course, how we see ourselves. If I don't see myself as capable of more, then I'm going to project that onto my children. If I have them, I'm going to project them onto others. And so
Right,
it's literally, it's like you can change the world in one generation by
right.
changing the way they see themselves. And then they see that possibility of, wow, if Johnny can do it, then maybe, the next one can do
You
it, the
made a
next
good
one.
point here. You made a good point, and that is now things are beginning to change. They're seeing that many of our early batches,
Yeah.
children, are succeeding. They are going to college. They got excellent job in Microsoft and five other great companies. Now the new parents are realizing that, hey, so and so is doing well. Maybe my kid can also do well. Now
Yeah.
they're hearing that they're going to America. So the whole thing is completely different for the children. For the
Yeah.
children, it is amazing seeing that earlier batches, the last 4 years since we started sending them to the United States, are going to America to study in colleges. Practically the whole school wants to go to America. I'm
Yeah.
exporting them, but of course, only 3 or 4 get in each year. They
Right.
have the 95 percentile in SAT, and
Yeah.
all the other things they have to achieve. So 3 or 4 in a batch is good enough number, and others go
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Well, and you're changing their mindset. So even if they don't get into an Ivy League school or American school, but now their
Right,
mindset is expanded, and
right,
you're expanding the mindset of the parents and of everyone who sees it. That's true transformation, it's lasting transformation, because it's based on identity. It's based on
right,
who I am and who I'm capable of being. I love it. I love it.
right.
Yeah. So do you ever have kids that are resistant to that, that are like, it's harder to get through, or do you notice that some kids it's easier to get through to and other kids it's hard to get through to? What do you notice about that? Or are they all really receptive because they're
All the kids aspire for
mm-hmm,
something good to happen, but like life.
like anything?
Some
Yeah.
kids think that I'm not good enough. No matter
Yeah.
what you say, maybe they have some learning difficulties and they haven't been scoring well. So that problem is there, and we try to remedy it. But in a class of 20 or 25, you may get 4 or 5 kids who will finally succeed in getting into good American university. The others, they go to Indian universities, and they're all top universities. They're not bad at all. And then after they finish their, bachelor's degree, they end up with top companies, mostly American companies again, who are in Bangalore. The nearest city is Bangalore. It's called the Silicon Valley of India.
Mm-hmm.
And there you have practically every American company there. So uh, because of their background and upbringing, our children have much easier time getting through good interviews and so on, and they get admission. So, like you said, 98% graduate from college, and actually, this almost same 98% get into good companies too.
Oh, good.
One of the challenges we face is actually something else, and that is we spent 14 years from the age of 4 to complete high school.
Yeah.
We take a nursery, KG, and all the way 12 years, so 14 years with us. Then we have to tell the parents, hey, you have to wait another 4 years for the job. They say, listen, we can't wait 18 years. We'll be dead by then, so how long this will go on? And if they ever want to do masters, God forbid, these people don't
So
let
what they're
same.
waiting for them to come back and help the family earn income? Is that what it is?
Well, it's not fair to ask them to leave and come and help family. They can help from America. Part of their income they can send,
Yeah.
and they can visit once a year. They have great aspiration. They want to do well in America or anywhere for that matter. Some are in Canada and UK. And so we tell them you pursue the best opportunity that you have. You can help in many different ways. You don't have to come back to your village
Yeah.
where there is no opportunity at all. So
Yeah. But is
we
that what
were,
their parents are impatient for? Or what is
no,
it that
they're
is their
waiting for
hesitation?
money, money,
The
money.
money. Yeah, that's what I mean, like the support. So
Yeah.
so they don't pay for it, obviously. How do you
Oh, no,
fund
no.
this? How do you fund this?
We don't fund at all. The entire cost of education and boarding is paid by the university. That's a challenge. Otherwise, we would get more children to come.
I
And
mean, up
these
until the point
colleges have
from
been.
from 4 to 18, how do you pay for it? I know
Oh,
originally
that
you were
that
paying.
we
Mhm,
as I said, I had made some money in business, and so initial 15 years I did it by myself, and then I had some difficulty during the 2008 crisis, and then my son Ajit joined me to raise money,
mhm.
and so today most of the money comes from donations. And here I want to point out something, Nicole, and that is a good 60 to 70% of that donations come from America, not from
Wow.
India.
Wow.
And people who have not seen the school,
Yeah.
they read about it, they
They
watch the
believe.
film,
Yeah.
and they say, "My God, this is what we want to help." And
That's awesome.
sometimes they make a trip and come and look. But in that sense, America has been very generous.
That is awesome. Well, I love to hear that. I love to hear that. You mentioned about some of the challenges that you face with kids. What challenges did you face even just starting off the school? Like I think about some of the people that are listening, aspiring leaders of transformation, right? They're aspiring to make a difference in the world. Maybe they're thinking about launching something, or they're early stage and they're in, and maybe they don't have the funds and the resources. They didn't make all the money first to, but they're just like they feel called to it. um what would what could you share from your story in terms of your staying power, right?
Right,
To
right.
get through those challenges, because there's always going to be challenges, always going to be
Right,
obstacles that
right.
you have to face when
I
you're doing
had
something
two
new.
sets of challenges. The first one I didn't think was a challenge because I thought I had made enough money in America. So, it was easy for me. I had, sold my business and all of that. So first 15
Nice.
years, I did all the construction and everything else until, the market crashed and I got into difficulties. Um, and then because we had succeeded in demonstrating to people that we had done a good job, we are able to attract money. So financial is a very major consideration if you're going to do something of your own. The
Yeah.
other choice is to join another NGO, a non-governmental organization, and work there, and hopefully you can make a good contribution.
Yeah.
A third choice is find some person who is rich enough, join forces with him, and tell him, I will be your agent for getting the job done. You give me your money, and I'll show
Yeah.
you, you'll be the board and everything else. So, different ways you can persuade another person. But in my case, um, my ability to demonstrate to others that I mean business and I've done well. And
Mm.
that has helped me even today.
Mm. Yeah. So did you have any resistance from the government agencies? And as you were trying to set this up, I mean, you're starting a new school. You don't just set up a school and say, okay, I mean, maybe you do in India, right? Here, I know there's a lot of resistance. You want to set up a charter school. It's a whole process. I've had
Right,
clients
right.
that have done it. So was there any resistance on that side? Because you're now I'm sure there's some of the government that wants to help the underserved population, but then there's the other side of it which doesn't, so
Right. You asked a very intuitive question. There were two problems. First is the community. You take a few children from the poorest in a village, and then you see the landlords that say, hey, this kid is going to one of the great schools, good schools, and my kid can't go there. And then another bunch of fellows will say, if you educate all of them and they go somewhere else, who is going to work in my field?
yeah,
Okay, so
exactly.
that is one. And they
Yeah.
even said they're going to burn down the school. So we went
Yeah.
through that phase. Okay. The other is something I was aware of, which is corruption. And this is 30 years ago. 30 years ago when I came, and even today, corruption is rampant. And so I made a decision that I will not ask for government to give me any money. If I took government money, they will come and, you know, sit on top of me, ask me for this, ask me for that, and they come and inspect and they'll take more bribes. So to this day, I have not taken government money. I have reached out to private individuals. And
Hmm.
by the way, most of the donations that come from the United States are from individuals, not from corporations.
Hmm.
In India, it is slightly different because in India, individuals don't donate much for whatever reason. And government enacted a law whereby 2% of the profits of a company has to be given to charity.
Hmm.
So they distribute that money to many charitable organizations, and we get a small share of it. We have to go and somehow convince them that they should give us. And we have been reasonably successful. But as I said, most of the money comes from the United States, and that too from individuals, because American foundations normally fund American charitable projects. And I don't blame anyone.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
individuals, especially those of Indian origin, that means they were born in America, but their parents came from, they have some affinity to India, and so they are willing to help. And then
Yes.
uh, uh, others who are not of Indian origin, they also reach out and help us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the tendency, right? We have a tendency to just focus in on helping those in our own
Right.
country and yet not realizing that we're global citizens, and it's a, It's
Right,
helping,
right.
it's helping humanity. So how did you find these, because I'm thinking about some of the questions, right, that people are going, yeah, like how do you find these individuals that would support you? Now you had some connections probably through your business and all of that, but at some point you go beyond that. And
Right, right. I didn't
mhm,
have, I made a big mistake, and that was when I left my business in America. And for 15 years, I was on my own. And I said, I got to focus on my work, and I don't want any business things to, come
right.
the way. And
Yeah.
after a few years, they're all retired and they're gone. So I didn't have any business
Okay.
connection.
Yeah.
My son took over, is young,
Hmm.
and he used social media quite a lot.
Mm,
And he made talk at TED Talk,
okay.
and I write blogs. I wrote a couple of books. And then came Netflix film Daughters of Destiny, which made a huge difference because, it was rated, it was awarded an Emmy Award for television with a conscience, and
Wow.
it spread all over the world, and that really helped. Uh, our credibility was established because of that film. And now I've written another book, and hopefully it will come out. No, it
Yes.
is
Talk
coming
about
out
that.
this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is another way to get your story out.
Yeah. Talk about that. Your book that's coming out.
Okay. I can disclose the name of the book unless the publisher changes it. It's called Mountains to Cross. It's nothing to do with mountains, but obstacles to cross, of
Yes.
course. And it is about how you can find purpose to your life. That's
Mm,
what I found. For 25 years, I was successful as a businessman, Wall Street. And what did I discover in my work? I found that there is so much joy in giving and so much joy in making things happen, especially for children. And uh, and so um, I decided that my book ought to be not just about my accomplishments, but how did I do it? What inspired me to do it? And if you want to, if you have made money, especially, and you want to find some sort of satisfaction, like um,
yeah.
uh, Jane Goodall talks about in her book. I believe it's called Joy or something. You need to, and also a couple of other books I've read where you need to find satisfaction in making a difference to other people's lives. And I found that not only it is difficult to make a difference to other people's lives. It's, you can touch one person, two person, but if you're going to do in a larger scale, there are so many other obstacles come our way. But if you cross those mountains, and you make them successful, like these stories I've told you, just to see their faces, just to see their families, how it is transformed, their own siblings, their parents, they're moved out of the hut into a nicer home. And the joy that comes from seeing the transformation in one generation, that is a very, very rewarding thing. I feel I am fortunate enough to have that satisfaction in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's anything greater, more satisfying than that, from a impact standpoint, legacy
Right.
standpoint. But it's not actually, it's more than what you receive from it. If you look at it, I think there's a lot of people nowadays that I love the fact that there's so many people that want to help others and are out there, and the random acts of kindness, but they're like happen to have it recorded, but it's had the video camera and the whole crew there just happened to be. But anyway, the virtue signaling is popular, but when you get beneath all of that to how it feels to be able to use what you have in service of others, it's yeah, That's what you're talking about. And
Yes, in some ways you need to do this silently, quietly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yesterday I got a email from one of the girls who is currently with ExxonMobil,
Hmm.
and she wrote to me, "I am going to have my baby this month, and I want to bring her up the way I was brought up." That's very, very moving,
Yeah,
to hear something like that,
yeah. And you won't
touching.
even know all the stories. You won't
No,
even
I
know, and
don't.
your kids won't they won't even know all the stories. You don't know the ripple effect that has gone out
Correct.
from the decision that you made, years ago, and and the impact that it's you can't calculate it.
Right.
So yeah.
Nicole, I
And
want to say one other thing, and that
mhm,
is, when I was in graduate school at NYU,
mm,
I had decided that I'll go into this, but I was thinking, what is the best way to do something?
yeah,
And how do I break, at least in a small way, how do I break the cycle of social discrimination?
yeah,
And it became very clear to me that no amount of preaching, whether you do it in the church or a temple, people are not going to come out and suddenly become,
yeah.
people will,
Talking, all the
yeah,
talking.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's about it. And I came to a simple conclusion that the path to social justice is through economic justice.
Amen. Yes.
And that's why I'm trying to make these children extremely successful economically. The change has to come from bottom up. Don't wait for somebody to give them justice.
Yes. Yes. And thank you. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. My dad used to have this saying. He said that you can't be truly free unless you're economically, financially free, because it has such an effect on our lives and what we're able to do.
Right,
And so, yeah, it's the systemic. So you're talking about the systemic transformation of how do you change? We talk about generations, and I love the fact that you're doing it from bottom up as opposed to, and as kind of alluding to in the beginning, there's a lot of people that are waiting for it in America, waiting for it from top down. They're not doing this, they're not doing that, and whatever. And it's like you make it, and I forget who it was, famous actor, I think it was Morgan Freeman, and he was interviewed, and he's like, man, it's a long way from Memphis or wherever it was. It's a long ride from there to here, but everybody can make that ride if they make the choice.
right.
And so we get to choose. And but sometimes you don't even know that that's even possible. And the people the kids that you were working with initially, maybe now they see that possibility. But if you don't even know that that's possible,
But
then having somebody.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sorry. There is no escaping the reality that someone has to reach out for them.
Somebody has to reach out. So it's
Yeah,
twofold, but there's the partnership in that, if you
right,
will. Yeah.
right.
So
And that's the challenge. How do you motivate enough people, especially people with financial means,
yes,
that A, they will find joy, B,
yes,
they have an moral obligation to improve the
yes,
lives of these people. So, and third, make sure that they realize that their money is not wasted.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
people are very skeptical about, you know, these types of projects. They think that, somebody is going to walk away with the money they give. But then you demonstrate on the ground that this has really had a big impact. Then people are willing to come forward.
that's a great place to end this too, is that grassroots, less talking, more action. Action speaks volumes. Like
Correct.
there's a saying, right? Faith without works is dead, right?
Right.
If faith doesn't, whatever your faith is, if it doesn't translate, or your desire to help people, or your desire to make a difference in the world doesn't translate into good works,
Right.
then what is it? So that's why I often will say, I say, leaders of transformation, take action on something that you learned here. And I encourage our listeners to do that. And You can listen to podcasts all day. I have a podcast. We have over 530 episodes, but you can
Wow.
listen to podcasts all day. You can read books. You can study and learn. But until you put that into action, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change in the physical.
You used
You,
a very important word. I often, in my book, I talk about it. Compassion is wonderful. You have sympathy, you have empathy, you have compassion. That's great. But compassion without action is of no use. It doesn't benefit the other person. It only makes you feel good.
yes, yes. So I'm going to encourage, thank you for being here, Abraham. I really appreciate it. And we're going to make sure that that the links to your website are in the show notes. Everybody can go and get that. Shanti Bhavan children.org. We'll make sure that that is there with the correct spelling and everything, and also on the screen here for those watching in the video. And for our listeners, I just encourage them, take action. Leaders of transformation,
Right,
leaders who create transformation in the world, take action.
right.
So, on
Exactly.
something that you learned here today, there's so much inspiration in this, but there's also practical action and an example of what you can do. I just encourage you to take action on something. If there's something that we can do to support you in that, in taking that step, you're not sure what the steps are, how to do it, you don't have the connections yet, then reach out to us. We'd love to support you. But one of the things is I've had personally a lot of people that have reached out and said, "Hey, I'm trying to do this. I'm looking to do this," and so forth. You got to be willing to take the action. Nobody's going to do it for you,
Right,
right?
right,
You got to take the action for yourself and step out in faith. Take that step, and then invite other people, enroll other people to participate with you. But you got to take that action and be doing something. You can't be overthinking it so long. At some point, you got to pull the trigger. Let's go, right? You got to jump out of the boat,
right,
right? You got to
right,
go
right.
swimming. Like it's like all these analogies, but it's life, right? And so we encourage you to do that. And if you need some support along that journey, we love to support you. And you can reach out to us, leaders@transformation.com. Ask us any questions, what you need. We can, support you however we can. And I encourage you that if you've been encouraged by Abraham's story and what they're doing there at the school, go support what they're doing. Maybe making a monthly pledge or whatever it is, support what they're doing, get involved, maybe even getting involved if you're not ready to start your own thing,
Right,
like
right,
participate in something else, learn,
right.
get involved,
Right.
and do something. Everybody doing a little bit adds up to a lot. So we encourage you to do that. Again, Abraham, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you very
here.
much. You made
Yeah.
a very, very powerful point, Nicole, at the end. I mean, throughout, but a powerful point that people have to act on it. No amount of talking. And enjoy the documentary, Daughters of Destiny on
Yes.
Netflix.
Yes. And we look forward to your book coming out. So when your book comes
Yes.
out, give us a link. We'll make sure that also gets included in the notes
Okay.
afterwards as well. So
Okay.
anyway,
Thank
thank
you,
you so
Nicole.
much. It's a pleasure. Thank you everyone for being here. We look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of the Leaders of Transformation.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
My pleasure.